Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shatter Our Souls with Novari. Now, you know the drill at this point. We're tackling Blacklist number 5, Webster. Now, Webster is where I kind of hit the wall. Um, Looking back at how things went in my prior game where I actually did finish beating the game, Webster was the number one tipping point. Facing off against JV, Brawny, Bull, all of them, they're easy. Fighting the bosses, that's fine. However, this is the point where the game flips from being a trigger happy romp, so to speak, chasing your opponents through the streets of Rockport, to becoming a battle of attrition, or stamina battles. And I say this with understanding of what this actually means. When I'm referring to a race as a battle of attrition or a battle of stamina, I'm referring to the races that start becoming between 4 and 10 minutes long each. Now, while we haven't yet hit the wall where that's gonna become a problem, it is something to note in the future that once we hit probably JV, we're going to be in a very different situation than we've been up to this point in the game. Once we hit JV, I believe that the challenge of each section is going to flip. What was the easy races, like the sprints, the circuits, are going to be brutal. And the ones that were incredibly difficult, such as the, not the toll booth, the speed trap races, are going to be laughably easy by comparison. And the reason is because the gimmick makes it easier, ironically enough, once you hit the late game. You can plan on the gimmick. But when it is a straight up 1-to-1 as plain Jane as it gets, like a sprint or circuit race in the late game, well, you're kind of hooplawed if something goes wrong. And when it's a 10-minute race, the likelihood of something going wrong is rather high. So, knowing that, we're going to enjoy probably what is going to be the last of these simplistic races that this game has to throw our way. Wow. Police, I literally just drove right past you and there was nothing. No concern whatsoever. Alright, well, they're probably not going to find me back here. So, yeah. Yeah, they didn't find me. So we're just going to keep on rolling. And looks like this is another sprint race. I'm guesstimating that this was an issue of there were 4 races left, 2 sprints, 2 circuits, or 2 similar-ish races, before challenging Webster himself. At least that's my understanding of the circumstances. Oh, we're right near the end of the race. What is that section there? That's gotta be like the downtown section by the donut stand. Huh. Okay. Anywho, not the end of the world. I'm not sure what the 3 of them all ran into, but they all dropped down about 1,000 feet behind, so that's fantastic news for me. Now, knowing what I'm walking into in the next little bit, the Lexus is going to have a lot of problematic circumstances crop up. The first of them is going to be the acknowledgement that this car doesn't hold up in comparison to the majority of the other racers at the late game stage. This isn't to say that it's a bad vehicle. I think, if anything, this entire run has shown that the Lexus, despite it being a starter car, can be functional for the majority, if not the entire game. However, calling a spade here, the Lexus lacks consistency in the late game. Now, that's going to be a little bit of a hard thing for any car to get. Partially because once we hit those really long races, I might be able to last 2 laps out of 4, each at 2.5 minutes each, and have no issues. But there's always the possibility of something coming up in those later sections. It's about consistency over a longer span of time, something that this car, while decent, doesn't always excel at. If I made a personal statement on it, I would say that the Lexus is probably low to mid tier in that regard. I would say that a lot of cars like the Viper, the Corvette, are better in multiple circumstances than the Lexus would be in terms of that side of things. But that's my own biases showing through. If I could pick a car that I think would be absolutely excellent for the majority of the game, I would say the Lotus Elise, because the Lotus has some of the highest handling, actually, correction, has the highest handling in the game. So there's a very significant chance that that specific vehicle will be able to hold its own, simply because everything else will be slowed down on turns, and that thing will be taken like it's nothing. Curvy tracks are not a problem for the Elise. Note that the other side of it, the high-speed tracks like sprints and sprint races, would be the ideal for the Carrera GT. Now, the Porsche Carrera GT is a car that is unlocked after beating Ronnie, Blacklist number 3. And the car starts with access to every single piece of equipment, piece of machinery that this vehicle can cram into it, all at once. The Porsche Carrera GT has effectively the highest, I believe it's highest acceleration, and then the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren has the highest top speed. Don't quote me on that yet. I don't remember offhand. What I do know is that between all the various vehicles that we can deal with in this particular section of the game, those 3 are going to be the most unique in terms of average races go. I think that the pink car, I think his name is Criminal, is also using a Lexus. Come on, Criminal, show your colors. That is definitely a Lexus. Oh, beautiful. Very tight turn. Could have definitely hit the wall if things didn't go the way I had planned there. 3 laps. Looks to be a relatively simplistic track, wide open spaces, so we shouldn't have too much to worry about. And average speed is going to be 3 times the speed limit in this area, so yeah. Lots of fun there. The Cadillac CTS has a lot of... The CTS has a lot of power comparatively to most of the other vehicles that we see in the mid to late game. The CTS, in general, the car that Wheels in front of us is using, has a specialization on specifically top speed and acceleration. However, as I've alluded to in multiple other races and videos, it's a give and take. There's always something that a car gives up for something else. If a car has good hand or good top speed and good acceleration, it loses out on handling. If a car has good handling and acceleration, it likely lacks the top speed, and so on and so forth. There are usually two aspects that the car excels in and one that it struggles with. And going with a balanced approach where the car has fantastic or is decent across all levels, it excels in absolutely nothing, making it ironically weaker than the ones that excel in one way or another, like a curvy track, a high speed segment at the end of a race, that kind of stuff. That's my 2 cents on the matter, anyways. And would you look at that? The CTS caught up, and the CTS has fallen. I did not expect that they would actually run into a truck like that. That was rather disheartening. Alrighty. And if there was not a guardrail, I would be in the drink. And that is why we do not street race, people. At least not in real life. Well, I suppose you do you, but I personally don't endorse it because of how it can dramatically change one's life going forward if anything goes wrong. Final lap, and Criminal was knocked out, leaving Wheels with the Cadillac CTS as the final racer of the pack. Honestly, I don't foresee there being a whole lot to talk about with the remainder of this race. Unless, of course, I run head-on into a brick wall, but I doubt that's going to be the case. I think Webster needs to find himself a better choice of new agents, because it's kind of sad how his racers are handling. JV, I think, if we were to compare JV and Webster on a one-to-one basis, JV is more of a specialist in the power and handling. High top speed, high handling, low acceleration. Whereas Webster, has the Corvette, which is a rather decent balanced vehicle, ironically. It's designed to handle all terrains. That's not accurate. The Corvette is designed to handle turning, high power, and high speed with relative efficiency across all boards. Now, I mentioned 35 seconds ago that a car that is balanced loses out on specialization. And I stand by the statement. However, we also have to acknowledge that there is more to it than that. And I'll be honest, I think that the specialization lost is more than made up for by the all-around vehicle that it is, and how it can handle virtually anything I could throw at it. We are facing Guardy, Racer X, and I didn't catch the third name there, Watson, Elementary. So, yeah, I think overall, could be good, could be very bad. We'll see. This is a standard 2-lap race. As it's 2 laps, there's not a lap knockout, so this is as simplistic point to point as you can get. Do 2 loops around the track, finish off with a photo finish, and we're off to challenge the boss himself. Now, I admit that I've been very dismissive throughout this challenge. What started as something that I believed was going to be incredibly difficult kind of leveled off rather easily. And I kind of alluded to my belief that it is primarily due to the fact that I'm not changing vehicles constantly. I got used to my car, how it handles, and I can go with it from here to the end of the game without worrying about how the car's change in performance over time is going to matter a whole lot. But if I was going to swap my car right now to the Porsche Carrera GT, I wouldn't be able to succeed. And that is simply due to the fact that the new vehicle, I wouldn't know where to start. Alright, one lap left. Each lap looks to be about 2 minutes in duration. Shouldn't be too bad. We're about 100 feet behind Watson, who I think is using a Lancer? But I'll be honest, I have no idea on what vehicle the opponent ahead of me is using. All I know is that almost sent me flying into a wall. Could have been way worse, I suppose. Could have been way better. Alrighty, yeah, police are involved, but aren't worried about me. Interesting. I think they're all concerned with Watson. This is kind of a weird circumstance. Normally the police are always after the player in first. Watson was in second. Yeah, that makes sense. Knowing that, I can capitalize on the fact that Watson is going to be distracted in some capacity or another for the duration of the race. Racer X and Guardy never really held much of a candle in this particular track. Now, a little bit about AI in the early 2000s. Now, back in, I believe it was Mario Kart 64 in the, I suppose, late 90s. Mario Kart 64 had a AI that was designed around an 8-person race. Each opponent would have, X amount set up towards them. And all that was all fine and dandy, all well and good. But the thing that makes it unique was that the AI had a rival mechanic, where it would pick 2 characters out of the roster to be your primary opponent. Ironically, it's something that, now that I'm aware of it, shows up consistently throughout racing games as a whole. And so, dealing with a few of the characters, like Watson, Wheels, and whatnot, I seriously made him run into a car that fast. The odds of that happening that early are very slim. And the odds of me running into one are very high, apparently. Okie dokie. Anyways, as I was stating, the rival mechanic in racing games, as a general statement, has been consistent. Typically, video games have a mentality of pick 1 or 2 to be your primary opponent, and that'll be it. Now, I remember back in Need for Speed Pro Street, there was one racer that always cropped up in my standings at the higher end, named JP Laurent. Now, JP Laurent used the Pagani Zonda, which was the game's supercar, and as such had a leg up over the competition. But the thing is that this Pagani Zonda and this individual were designed specifically to be your rival for said race, said track. It was meant to have an opponent capable of playing on even terms with you. In many ways, I feel that is partially what they tried to do with the AI of the various bosses in Need for Speed Most Wanted. Having opponents that really tried to push you to your limit. And in the average races, there's always one individual that stands out. And this individual usually holds a much better chance of being victorious over the player by virtue of their AI and how they were designed from the ground up. Knowing this and understanding this, it is possible to take advantage of oversights in the AI, especially with certain game modes like lap knockouts, where the game itself has... Okay, no, no, no. You know what, this is a video game. I have no problem doing a pit maneuver if that's what it takes to win. Round 2, speed trap. So, by being able to take out the top player of any given race, you're effectively stopping your opponent from being able to capitalize on it. Typically, they do this in stages so that, you know, the character or vehicle that's supposed to give you the best challenge after the primary rival will be able to hold his own against you in some capacity. But by manipulating the AI, well, not the AI, the circumstances surrounding the AI, you can effectively give yourself an easier race by effectively shutting down your opponent before they even have a chance to actually hold their own against you. Okay, so far Webster's about, I think that's 2 miles per hour faster than me. So theoretically, there's still plenty of space for me to catch up. And I can't use the shortcut this time, not that I'd want to with the location of that. And I'm not sure who it is that keeps putting vehicles in the middle of the road, but could you stop? That would be very nice, thank you. I personally love how ridiculous some of these races get. Oh no! Webster passed me. Oh well, this is one of those races I don't have to be in first. Although it would be better if I didn't run into a wall. Oh, news van. Yep. Of course, we have racers down on the International Street, or whatever this road happens to be. We're sitting about 15k faster than our opponent at the moment. So, we're looking to be in good shape with the end of this race here. Webster seems to be holding his own fairly well. Okay, that could have been very bad. A little bit of Final Destination vibes there. Oh well. Nothing came of it. No harm, no foul, right? Now, ordinarily I would use the shortcut. However, due to the nature of shortcuts slowing the player down, I'm opting for the longer track simply because I can maintain a higher rate of speed if I'm not sliding left, right, and center. That unfortunately doesn't help with the back road over here. Oh well. Be that as it may. Oh, Webster got into a small accident, so we're looking to be in decent shape for the last little push, last hurrah here. And of course, we gotta scare all the individuals that live all along this very friendly looking gated neighborhood. The HOA is not impressed. Straight 100 mile an hour. We're sitting approximately 50 miles per hour faster than Webster has through the various speed traps. Which leaves 1 to 2 left, depending on how many they decided to crowd in the last 30% of the race. So, knowing what I do now, I think the most ridiculous thing I could do would be to attempt to beat this game with every single vehicle, at least from the point it's unlocked. But I feel like that would be slightly insane. And I don't exactly want to be spending the next, well, given this channel's been going for the last 9 months, the next 4 years playing the same game. So I'm actually going to pass on that. But I am going to acknowledge that there's a possibility that if I'm bored, I might record the bosses themselves in the future as a not in the direction of this challenge. And the final race. A simplistic sprint race. I can see this going about as well as you might expect. Especially when Webster gets in a head-on collision after the first 15 seconds. So, I think at this point in time, it's time for Webster to cut his losses. He's done. And so, JV is next big hitter. Now, I'm going to be honest with this. I'm scared for what's coming up. I know that the game itself isn't the hardest thing in the world. But I will also acknowledge that this was designed at a time where video game balancing was still iffy at times. And so, knowing that, while I'm sure that JV, Ronnie, and Bull will be easy, they're not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the circuit races that last 10 minutes long. And they're very consistent in the late game. And so, there may be some races coming up in the near future that I will actually need to concede defeat on. I don't want to, but it is possible that the Lexus might not be able to hold its own in the late game as well as it has up to this point. I mean, honestly speaking, we're in the last 30-ish% of the game. It's about time that they pull out all the stops. Does not mean that I would... I feel like at this point, it's warranted. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that it's going to be reasonable at times. But it does mean that my goal is going to get significantly harder going forward, just as a general statement. Is this the same track that I was just on? I feel like this is an identical track to the race I was just on with the speed trap. If that's the case, then Webster's really struggling this round. Because running down the exact same track twice in a row just... It doesn't feel right. Anywho, back through this lovely gated neighborhood, let's bring down the property value just a little bit, scare the HOA a bit. Put a taxi in the HOA leader's yard just as a show of solidarity for the people that don't like paying fines. And away we go. 70% in virtually the same spot. This is the exact same race, isn't it? Okay, well, if we won last time, then theoretically we can win again. Anywho, 5 seconds ahead. I'm kind of curious if you could pick a car that you think would either be ridiculously fun to play through this type of challenge with, or one that is significantly harder than this was. leave an answer down in the comments below. I would love to see just how wrong I was about the Lexus being the weakest car in the game. Because I think it's fair to say it's not the weakest car. Then again, it all depends on the driver, not the ride. Anywho, if you like what you see, drop a like, leave a comment, and be sure to subscribe for more content. Until next time, I hope you have a good one.